In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this cute little needle book. It's a great little DIY project, great for beginners and experienced sewists alike. So, all you need is a little bit of fabric and felt. Let's get started. I'm Christine of christinescrafts.com, and this channel is dedicated to crafting on a budget. First thing you're going to need is some fabric. Suggest a nice cotton, and you're going to need two pieces, 7 inches by 4 inches. I'm using two different pieces of cotton, two different patterns because I want a different lining, but you can make them both the same if you prefer. So you're going to need one for the outside and one for the lining. You also need a piece of interfacing the same size so that you can stiffen up the book a little bit. You're also going to need your felt pieces to put your needles through, and they are going to be 5 inches wide by 2 inches tall. It's up to you how many of these you have, and you can cut them out like I've done using pinking shears to get a nice edge, or you can just cut them with ordinary scissors. It really doesn't matter. In this needle book I'm going to use 3 layers, but in another one I'll show you later on I've only used 2. It depends how thick you want your book to be and how many needles you want to store inside it. So in total, what have you got? You've got your 3 pieces or 2 pieces of felt for your linings, for your inside, put your needles through. You've got a piece of fabric for your lining, a piece of fabric for the outside of the needle book, and a piece of interfacing. So the first thing we're going to do is take that iron-on interfacing and iron it onto the wrong side of the outer fabric piece. So make sure you get the glue side down against the back of your piece of fabric. And then just apply some heat, which will activate and melt that glue, and it will hold it in place securely. Once you've done it, just check it's adhered properly. If it hasn't, just increase your heat slightly and go again. Hopefully it'll be stuck fast. So now you need to take that outer piece and your lining piece and put them right sides together, and you're going to pin all the way around. Pin quite close to the edge because you're going to sew it quite close to the edge. However many pins or clips you use is entirely up to you, but you don't want it moving about. So just make sure you're happy with it, and then you're going to sew around the edge, but making sure you leave a hole. So I suggest you start on one of the long sides because that's the best place to have your hole for turning it the right way out. I tend to position it so that the foot is running alongside the edge of the fabric so I don't get too wide a seam. And make sure you reverse when you start so that your end doesn't come unravelled. When you get to the corner, make sure your needle's in the fabric, lift the foot and turn through 90 degrees. Work your way down the short side and repeat the process. Make sure that needle is down, lift the foot and turn through 90 degrees. That's the way to get nice crisp corners. So work your way all the way along the long side, turn carefully at the corner, short side, turn at the corner, and this time make sure you don't go all the way along to your other stitches. You need to leave a gap that's big enough to turn it the right way out. So just check you leave that gap and then reverse to make sure you finish your end of your seam, and that's it. You've sewn as far as you need to around there. Remove it from your machine, cut the ends, tidy up the other ends from the other end of your seam, and then before we think about turning it the right way out, we're going to clip those corners. So by that I mean each corner in turn you're going to get your scissors and cut the corner point off close to the seam, but make sure you don't cut your stitches. If you do, it'll all start to unravel. So just cut close to your stitches. It just makes a little less bulk on those corners, so it'll sit more nicely when you sew it. You'll get a better finish. Also, if your fabric didn't line up properly and you've got any extra bits, you can trim them off at this point. Now is your last chance to make sure you're happy with those seam allowances. So once that's complete, we need to turn it the right way out. Just poke it all through with your fingers and get it the right way out. Once you do, you'll probably find you've got quite rounded corners. It doesn't necessarily turn out fully all the way. And the thing I recommend is a chopstick. It's the perfect tool for getting in that corner and easing the corner out. Don't be too rough because you don't want to force your way through the stitches. You can also use the back of your scissors, which I'm going to show you. Again, you've got to be very careful, especially if your scissors are pointed. You don't want to cut your stitches. And then you need to make sure that you're happy with the hole you left and that the seam is folded in and pressed in line. And you're going to press the whole thing to get some nice crisp edges. Take your time, make sure all your edges are in the right place, and make sure where your hole is, it all lines up perfectly. You'll see I'm taking a little bit of time with that. I'm coming back to it and I'm making sure it's right. It's worth the effort. Still not happy? Make sure it's how you want it, because that's what you're going to stitch over all the way around. This time you are going to go all the way around and it's going to sew that hole closed for you. So you may choose to top stitch with a slightly larger stitch, that's up to you. But just make sure you set yourself up so you're stitching really close to the edge. And as before, when you get to the corner, make sure your needle's in, lift the foot and turn. And repeat that for every corner as you get to it. You'll get a nice crisp corner. So this is acting as a decorative finish and also to close up that hole that you used to turn the fabric through. When you get to these stitches that you started with, make sure you go over them slightly to tidy those up and then do a little bit of reverse, and then nothing should come undone. And that's the outer case ready. Now we need to think about the inside. So the first thing we're going to do is fold that outer case in half and just press it. This is going to allow us to find the middle and find the fold and see where we need to attach the felt. Just give it a little press and then it'll be obvious when you open it up where the center of the needle case is. So now you're going to get your felt pieces and you're going to find the center of those. So take your 2 or 3 pieces and lay them on top of each other and line them up perfectly. And then you need to fold those in half and mark the center with a pin. So make sure you're happy with them and then just use some pins to mark the center. You can mark from one end and from the other, which will make sure you don't lose that edge when you're sewing it in a moment. So I've marked it from both ends. So now I'm going to place the center of the felt along the center of the actual case and pin it in place. And what matters here is that you're running down that center line exactly. If you run down exactly with the pins, you're going to have a better chance of running down exactly with your stitching, which is what you need to do. Because all we've got left to do now is attach that felt, and we're going to do it with a single row of stitching right down the center of the book. So you can fold it, make sure you've done it right. You've still got time to redo it if you're not happy with it. And then take it over to the machine. Just get your foot lined up. You can get it perfectly along that pin line. Pull that pin out a little way because you don't want to sew over it. And then start your stitching. Make sure you do a little reverse at the end so it doesn't come undone. And then run perfectly down your line, removing the pin as you go and making sure you stick down that straight line. When you get to the other end, a little reverse again, just to make sure nothing comes unravelled. And then remove it from the machine and trim off your threads, because now you have finished your needle book. So you've got a perfectly good case to keep your needles in, and it matches anything else you've made in the same fabric. So it's the great thing of making your own supplies. Fold it back in half and your needle case is complete. So this one here, you've got 3 layers in. I'll show you another in a moment with 2 layers in. But now you know exactly how to make them. You can put as many layers as you like in. You can put a fastener on, but I choose not to. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and good luck making your own needle book. Please remember to give me a thumbs up below and subscribe to my channel, and you can see all my craft tutorials as they go up on the internet. Thank you.